Hello YouTube, Laurie here. Now, we have a little bit of an issue today. I've taken control.
You're all screwed.
Yeah, he's already screwed. The fact that I'm here. After a very eventful session last week, or the week before I should say, we had a rather interesting session this week as well. When we first arrived, Jez was there as well when we were playing Heresy, so I was kind of surprised the fact that we were going to be playing Heresy with Jez playing along. So I guess I probably wasn't the only one a bit surprised, but apparently Craig had found a way to get Jez involved, and considering how the session went, it worked pretty well. Now, we ended the last session having taken care of the guys, the squadron of Imperial Guardsmen, traitors, or whatever they were, in the room, and, well, as needless to say, we won. But on very low health, we were. So, we entered into the next room, or rather, what appeared to be a corridor. At first, you know, fog of war and all that. As we opened the door and went through more, we saw cells on the left and the right. Now, I know I just got my left and right mixed up, but hey. In one of these cells was an Imperial Guardsman loyalist. Apparently a artilleryman, a grenadier as well, primarily. We found this guardsman. He was barely conscious, but apparently conscious enough to petition us to let him out so we can, well, deal some righteous vengeance back on these traitors. Jericho's was probably all for it, from what I could tell. Although Rob, in his usual way this time around again with the session, was having some bad dice rolls throughout the entirety of this session, so even Pete was with his arbitrator, sorry, that was his previous character. His Psyker was not doing too great on the rolls, but then again, none of us were that great this time around. Even I was having some bad rolls. I managed to pick the lock for this guardsman who was in the cage, or the cell. We gave him some rations and basically helped him get back onto his feet. After a bit more investigation, we found that most of the cells, although empty, they weren't empty before we got there, if you will. There was a lot of dead loyalists, rotting corpses and the like. Not a very pretty sight, but nothing out of the ordinary for 40th millennium in this case. It was 41st millennium, sorry. The stench was bad, but we managed to keep our lunch down. Or breakfast, or would it be dinner? I don't know. We didn't really have a time frame for what the time the mission was at. So as we progressed into the next room after that, we found it was a locker room and partial armory. There might have been a shower in there, I don't know. It's a locker room, what do you expect? We started to investigate all the lockers, trying to find if there was anything of value, or, well, not so much value, so anything we could just use to help boost our own ammo supplies. We could definitely use it considering the rate some of us would be getting through ammo. I mean, Jericho's gun has like 60 bullets to a clip, although he can switch between 3 clips because he's got an auto selector, or a fire selector on his gun, which is a far sight better than what any one of us have to deal with, because he can just switch as a free action to any one of the cartridges for the gun. While we were searching, the guardsman pulls out a whistle and blows on it. Apparently, he knew his gun was nearby, and he blew on the whistle to call it like a dog. I think Joker's made a mention to that. He's like, I need to get one of those for my gun. Pretty silly. And, of course, as most people believe, if you name something, it works better. And the guardsman has his grenade launcher, and it's named Annabelle. He found it in one of the lockers. Apparently the traitors had stolen all his gear, and it was, well, as you would expect, in the very next room, in a chest labelled "Do Not Touch Adventurer's Gear." Typical logic for that, isn't it? I mean, we've had that happen to us already once before. After a whole discussion about how we're going to try and deal with their situation, we, of course, have to progress into the next room after this. And at this point, me and Jokers have managed to find ourselves a pair of riot shields as well, so you can see how we're planning on using these, considering the next room was a gauntlet. Pretty much. Although gauntlet fire wasn't coming from the sides as so much, it was coming straight down the middle, and we had very little room to progress. There's lots of shots coming through. So me and Jericho's took point with the riot shields up front. We had two pairs of guardsmen above us with some sort of turrets they were utilising. I think they had full automatic stub guns, or whatever the stub launchers, the cannons, whatever the big turret, full auto guns again are for them. Only full auto, you know, heavy weaponry. Now, me and Jokers were moving forward up front. The tactic was for me and Jokers to do that, whilst Harok, Pete's character, and this guardsman, who Jez was temporarily playing, pushed up behind us whilst we took the burst front of the fire. Needless to say, the tactic worked. We ended up getting to the end of the corridor with dropping some smoke and them firing into the smoke, because that's where we are. They're firing randomly. We got hit, but our armour was able to protect us, so no wound loss there. Now, we reached the door. Now, we reached the door. It's an extremely thick metal door, so you can understand that we're going to have some trouble getting through this one. Even with a melter bomb, it's not going to clear it. Jericho can tell that with his demolitions and scanner for the door. Now, we had found some key cards earlier under a desk that had a little hole underneath it as well, that Jericho's managed to discover. This door itself had a security key, so without having to maybe get some sort of auto-decryptor unit in, there was no way we were getting through this door without figuring out the code. All the while, we were getting grenades lobbed down on top of us. So I'm like, fuck! Okay, I'm going to try and just randomly push buttons to get the door open, whilst the others jump away from the grenade, which was the joke, kind of there. Although I was just using tech use to try and figure out what button combination would be the most likely combination to open the door. Of course, opening said door would take a very long time since it's one of those slow opening doors, apparently. Yes. Now, while we're waiting for this, we hear a horrible screeching sound. What do we have? We have some weird insectoid-like flying creatures of size. I don't know what the hell their size was, but apparently they're showing up. And the guardsman's going like, oh, here they come again! I'm like, what? what could possibly go wrong now? Shouldn't have asked that question. Should not have asked that question. That's the most obvious question that will make anything go wrong. Oh boy. Yes, we had some weird flying insect creatures come in, screeching and making us go a little bit, having to cover our ears because of it. And this is the point where Jez is now taking control of the Gribblies. Yes, he now has control of the monsters that are attacking us. So, yeah. And the guardsman, Rob gets to take over for this particular point in time. So, we have like 6 of these things show up. I think there was actually a bit more, but only like 6 on us. Or something like that. Might have been 5 or 6. But the fact is, they all swarm around the door right by me. So I'm getting... I'm getting multiple attacks coming at me. And the funny thing is, they all missed. Every single one of them missed from the first attack. Jericho's in an attempt to try and help me out. Photon bot grenades the spot I'm at. Now, it blinds all them, but it doesn't blind me due to the fact that I have a visor that comes down over my eyes and blocks photon flashes. While we're waiting for the door to open, these things are constantly attacking. Even though some of them have been blinded and stunned for a couple of rounds, they're focusing all their attacks on me just by the fact that Jez is rolling a d4 to see which one of them it will attack. Unfortunately, they kept landing on me for the d4. We're all shooting these things. The guardsmen up top on the balcony bit that were throwing grenades down and shooting us as we were progressing along the corridor are also being attacked. Now, I get hit a couple of times and I end up getting poison damage that affects an attribute. My agility gets reduced by 1d5 for every time I'm hit. Now, I only got hit twice, but it still took off like maybe 9 points of agility on me, so that was definite pain. That was right there. Now, the door finally opens. We managed to kill a few of these things off. We run through the door. I cook a grenade and chuck it behind us as we're running through. Several of them fly off with a corpse that has been killed and start munching on that. Like, another 4, however, follow us through the door before we get a chance to close it. And Jericho basically just opens a full auto on them with his Spectre. Needless to say, we ended up wiping them out, but it took quite a reload action for Jericho to have to get the clip fixed. Now, where do we find ourselves? In a big room with a bunch of stairs leading up. Of course. We are on low health and we're like, damn, this better not be a boss fight because we ain't ready. It was a boss fight, alright. Now, we go up the stairs. We have to take a willpower test because we're seeing, depending on the character, some random event that would make us go with a little bit fearful of possibly what was coming. Or something along those lines. Some sort of mind fuckery, if you will. Cause us to see something that would make us go, whoa, what was that? Jericho's case, it was like lots of laughter. He could see the walls grew faces and were laughing at him. And he was like, I twitch. What? Yes, we all passed our tests and got up the stairs. At the top of the stairs, we saw a guy on a throne. Well, not a throne. If we're talking about a guy on a throne, it'd be the Emperor. He was in a big chair that was pretty much him into, and he had lots of wires plugged into it. Some sort of a... what's the word I'm looking... I'm not sure. You could say how pilots look in 40k for some of the bigger machinery, where they're constantly plugged into it. When we're all in sight of this guy, he says to us, I've been expecting you, pretty much. The master told me that your arrival was going to be coming today. I'm like, oh dear. How did I know he was going to say that? Out of character, by the way, because it's always like that, isn't it? It's like, the evil villain swirls around on his swivel chair, like, I've been expecting you, Mr. Bond. For pity's sake. Of course. All our characters just look at each other like, what's with this guy? And he asks us to come closer to him because he has information he wants to give us. Oh, we don't like it. We're not liking it one bit. So, it's a big circular room. There's no corners for us to stand in. And we closed the door at the entrance so we didn't have any more of those creatures coming in. Because that would have made this next fight painful, and even more so. Pete's character, Harald, is like a... pardon me. Walked around the edge of the room in one direction. I pretty much stayed by the entrance, like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere near this guy. But... I was like, if you want to talk to me about anything, if you want me to give you freedom, which you're asking for, fine, I'll give you freedom. I'll just shoot you in the head. How's that sound? The Joker's like, yeah, the Emperor's release. That sounds like a good idea. Guardsman Grenadier, I can't remember his name for the life of me, walked over to another side of the room, although not really you could say sides considering it's circular. The Joker's like, fine, I'll see what you got to say. Starts walking up to him, gets about halfway, and says like, okay, you can tell me from here. He's like, no, you must come closer. I must give you the spoon physically. I'm like, I don't like this. The Joker's like, you want to move up, Mr. Anti-Psycho? Or at least Rob was like that. He was like, you might want to get your anti-psycho abilities working in here. I'm like, yeah. My character doesn't know this guy is potentially a psycho. So I'm staying put right here until I know otherwise. Thank you very much. As soon as Jerkus gets in like almost point blank range, this guy opens up with like 3 or 4 psychic abilities on us. And instantly constricts Pete, causing strangulation on him. Tries a couple of other psycho abilities on that don't go off at this particular point in time. But ends up causing perils of the warp, or at least the lower end tier of it. Ah dear. Yes. Oh. Sorry about that. Yeah, so he ended up causing perils of the warp, or at least the lower end tier. And even villain psychos can cause it, so GMs don't try and protect your NPCs and villains from it, because if it happens, then it happens. There's no way you can avoid the situation, realistically, because even these guys aren't protected, especially if they're unsanctioned. They're even more likely to cause problems. Now, my guy, in turn order, Pete's already constricted. This guy zaps Jerichus with a pair of lightning bolts. Jerichus ended up taking the bolts to the face, and ended up losing an ear because of it, which basically generated a fatigue point. He was on critical health, a -3. Zap. Ah! Where'd my ear go? Hope I can sew that back on. Or something like that. It doesn't cause any other penalties, realistically, but because it was only a lower end critical table. When Jerichus started unleashing rounds into him, the Grenadier was fearful because the warp effect caused the guy to gain fear 1. Yeah, yeah. The only two that managed to pass, it was me and Jerichus, and I was like, right, screw this. When it came around to my turn, I ran straight up to the guy, and yeah, I was jokingly, I'm going to run and Chuck Norris flying kick to the face. Of course, I didn't actually do that, because the run action was my full turn. So we went back round to the second time. Now, he tried constricting me, and because I'm an untouchable, I'm immune to the effects. No thank you, I'm not having any constriction on me, thank you very much. He tries to cast lightning bolts again. He doesn't manage to, because he doesn't roll high enough. And he was going to aim them at Jerichus again, try and finish him off. Although Jerichus would have just ended up going down and taking a fate point off. We had several turns of this, of him not being able to get his psychic powers off now, because I was causing him to have to roll 10 points higher than need be, which would mean having to roll more dice, which means a higher chance of perils of the warp. It took us a while, and we finally managed to take this guy down, with no casualties, luckily. But Jerichus was in a bad shape. Okay, it is safe to assume that every person we're going to be fighting at this point is going to be a psycho. Or have some link to psychic power in some front from here on out. Oh dear. And as we're turning around to make our way back out, what do we come across? The radio chair, apparently the Imperial Guard Commander, Sergeant, Lieutenant, whatever he is, I can't remember him right now. Apparently him and his men are still alive. I was half expecting them to be dead, considering all the, we need your assistance, blah, 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 give us help over here in the couple of sessions further down the line. And we've also got some information about what our next target is, what house we have to try and infiltrate, because this particular house has links to the Drusian cult or some such, and we need to stop them because they're heretics, and we, as part of the Inquisition, have to deal with heresy in all its forms, even if it happens to be, majority speaking, most of the time, in the form of demons, which is the only thing that can realistically kill us in one blow at this rate, because that's all it takes to pretty much just kick our ass, and because we can never get any sanctified bullets or any sanctified stuff when we need it. We have another heresy session in the bag, possibly of another one coming up soon, until we have some more information on how our little group is going to survive. If we can survive at this rate, because the way the last session went, we were this close to actually being on 0 wounds and dying constantly. I shall see you, and so shall Rob, at the table.